Welcome to Voice of San Diego at Home. It's April 29th, 2020. Coming at you live from my kitchen. Finally got Ashley to stop frying an egg, ruining the sound quality here. April 29th, 2020. We've got a lot to talk about today. Let's get right into it. First up, how about this guy? Vice President Mike Pence. You got to have some confidence these days to be going to a healthcare clinic, some sort of healthcare facility with COVID-19 patients, 60-year-old man, Mike Pence, and not have a mask. Just be like, hey, I got no problem. How about that? How great would that be? Just walk around that kind of moxie these days. It would feel good. The reason he said he could do that, of course, he said, as Vice President of the United States, I'm tested for the coronavirus on a regular basis, and everyone who is around me is tested for the coronavirus. And since I don't have the coronavirus, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to be here, to be able to speak to these researchers and look them in the eye and say thank you. He might be wearing his mask wrong if it's covering his eyes. But that apart from that, let's look at this quote for a second. I'm tested on a regular basis. Whoops. Get to that in a second. I'm tested on a regular basis, and everyone around me is tested on a regular basis for the coronavirus. How nice would that be? How great would that be to get tested and have everybody around you tested so that you could see who has it and who doesn't? How great would that be to know that the people around you have been tested, everybody's been tested, and the people who could get it are isolated and taken care of, and we can go about living with this threat. As Vice President of the United States, I'm tested for the coronavirus on a regular basis, and everyone around me is tested for coronavirus. What a life! What a world! How about that for the rest of us? How about that for the rest of us? This is your moment of Zen. This is courtesy of Ben Carpenter. If you haven't had a chance to get out to the beach, now that you're allowed to get out to the beach, our Mackenzie Elmer explained all of the bioluminescence going on. It's kind of gross to surf in. Water's a little murky. I would love to be tested. Yeah, it'd be great. Everybody, there'd be how many tests would people want? I think there's a lot of room for maybe. How about let's say schools are important to us. How about we test all the school employees so they can feel comfortable and know that their colleagues are okay. A lot of people say kids don't get it; they don't get sick. Well, there's adults who work with kids at schools. A lot of them are over 40. A lot of them are over 50. We need to provide people assurances that we can see where the virus is and take care of the people who have it, so we can live with this threat. All right. Sorry. End of that. Let's go back to our moment of Zen. Bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is the situation on the shores these days. Fantastic picture here from Ben Carpenter. We ran it in our environment report. And if you're not getting the environment report, get it. It's good stuff. Mackenzie Elmer is doing it now. She comes at us from Scripps Institution of Oceanography. She is great. You can follow her, but also get the environment report. Comes out every other Monday, where she explains the bioluminescence and talks about why it does this. What a picture, huh? What a picture. Back to testing. We decided to launch on our site a tracker. You can find it on voiceofsandiego.org right now. voiceofsandiego.org right now. You can find this tracker. We've decided to figure out how many tests they can do every day. This is the number we have right now, that we were just informed that Kaiser, the hospital system, can also do more tests, so we could add to this. We're just trying to figure out exactly how many we can add to this. Gavin Newsom says about 152, that's the governor. Governor Gavin Newsom said 152 people out of 100,000 people every day need to be tested to get to a point where we can feel comfortable about understanding where the virus is, who's being affected by it. 152 people per 100,000 people means about 5,000 tests in the county of San Diego. 5,000 tests. in the county of San Diego. This is how many we're doing every day, averaged over a 7-day period. They're going up. They're listening. They're activating. But if we're going to get to that 5,000 tests, what's taking so long? Let's get there. Let us get there. Let's get there. How about these two guys, huh? I can't get over this picture. I've obviously showed this 100 times. There's Mayor Kevin Faulkner talking about opening the beaches and our responsibilities there. There was a little bit of confusion. Mayor Kevin Faulkner said you can go to parks in the city of San Diego. You can go to parks, but you need to not play soccer, have games, stuff like that. But then a lot of people said, well, it says you can jog. It says that you can hike. It says that you can walk. But what about sitting? And I came out and I said, oh, you can sit. And then somebody else said, no, you can't sit. And I said, wow, you're right. It doesn't look like you can sit. And then the mayor's office came out and said, oh, you can sit. It's cool. You can sit. But then a lot of people chimed in and said, well, we were sitting and these cops or this school or these park staff came and said, we can't sit. So we stopped sitting. And the mayor's office said, no, we'll take care of that. You can sit. And then Monday, this guy, County Supervisor Nathan Fletcher, said, I want to talk about parks for a second. Just to be clear, you can't sit. You can't sit. So you can sit, but you can't sit. Got it? You can sit, but you can't sit. Got it. That's the rule. If you're interested in who all these people are making decisions, I highly recommend that you go to Meet the Pandemic Decision Makers. It's our new video on the website, voiceofsandiego.org. You know, we have two roles at Voice San Diego. A, make sense of what people are saying, and B, find out the things they don't want to say. This is that first part. We want to explain who's doing what decision-making in the county of San Diego. The county is the main role. They're the ones deciding what's allowed and what's not. And then the cities, like Mayor Kevin Faulkner, are the ones sort of implementing that. So who are all these people? You might want to know them as they make these decisions. Go to Meet the Pandemic Decision Makers. Great video by our Adriana Heldes. Sorry. Adriana Heldes has done great videos and good stuff there. We will get to that in a second. This is the week where we decide, this is the Voice San Diego at Home episode where we talk and take your questions. We try to answer anything we can. And if I can't answer it, then I'll pass it along to our reporters to pursue. So what are you wondering about? What do you wish we knew? What do you think I might know that I can explain? It has to do with city politics or county politics, public affairs, schools. We've got a lot more information about schools, a lot to talk about. So let's go back to that one screen real quick. Got some questions already on this. Let's pull this up. So this is the capacity. Our point is basically like if we got to get to 5,000, as the governor says, this is where we're at. So how are we going to fill up that circle, at least to what we're capable of? And if they can be capable of more, they're going to have to do that. They're also talking about various ways to randomly sample the community so we can see, kind of like you would with a poll, just to see where the actual virus is right now. Now, here's some basic facts. Again, Gavin Newsom suggested 152 tests per 100,000 residents per day. That's what we're trying to get to. All right. Let's get into the news. A couple of other things we wanted to highlight. Our contributor, Jared Whitlock, did a piece about nursing homes right now and some healthcare providers that are kind of worried about going to them because they're not being very transparent about when they have presence of the virus. San Diego doctors who are in and out of senior facilities, writes Whitlock, say information that's vital for doing their jobs has been tough to come by The number of coronavirus-linked deaths in nursing homes has surpassed 10,000 nationwide. And that's according to an April 23rd tally that didn't include some states. We talked to a doctor who works with some of these residents all the time, and they just didn't tell him that one of their employees had gotten the virus before he went into the facility. He tested negative for it, but he felt like that was a lapse. Big story on the site right now. If you go to voiceofsandiego.org, important story there. All right, let's look. Let's look at some of your questions. Carrie says any graphic should include the number of tests we need to do and the value we should do at a percentage of that. I agree. We decided to stick with capability right now. The need is at 5,000 at least. We did have a county public official said 10,000 per day, tens of thousands per day is what he wanted to get to. So we didn't want to put tens of thousands. We thought it would be fair to talk about capacity, and if we get up to more, we'll do that. If people are sick at the convention center, why are other residents allowed to leave the premises? It's a good question. We found a couple who were tested at the convention center that were positive. It's a free country, though. They are sorry, free with certain restrictions. We can't confine people to the convention center. There's no you can't have an armed guard there. That's not jail. They do appear to be taking appropriate measures to make sure they're isolated, the people who do test positive. There are about 2,000 hotel rooms set aside for people who are isolated or who need to be isolated because of the coronavirus. So hopefully they're being taken care of. Shouldn't tracking of nursing homes follow San Diego County? Yes, absolutely. I heard Family Health Centers doing 500 tests per day of their members, 12 and 0 who want one, but our family hasn't felt safe to do that yet. Yeah, so we are starting to see more groups of people who are being tested who are asymptomatic or otherwise not, terribly sick. UC San Diego has been testing everybody who goes into the doors, basically, and they're getting a testing positive rate of about 3%. 3%. So that's just that's a great rate. Unfortunately, in South Bay, there was one hospital reported last week 17% positive rate, which means there's far more people around there. There's going to be a lot of discussion, I believe, about South Bay and the border. A lot of people in South Bay maybe have jobs that they can't stay at home for, or are essential workers. Maybe they're in bigger family situations. The virus seems to be the biggest numbers of the virus right now are in South Bay. In fact, let's pull up our favorite COVID-19 dashboard, county dashboard. Pretty good stuff. I've been a fan of it for a while. Glad they did this. There's some improvements I would like to see there, but let's see. Put this there. There we go. All right. So if we click down here at the zip codes, you can see normal numbers, and then just the biggest numbers down here in Otay, San Isidro, Chula Vista area. So we're doing a lot of work right now to understand per capita what's happening, also to really investigate. But that's why we're seeing with this graph, this is the sort of main curve everybody's seeing, hasn't been flattening. It was flattening about here. But this South Bay situation is exactly why this is going up. So it's almost like we have a situation where a lot of the more resourced, well-to-do folks brought the virus around the world with their travels. And then a lot of the people who can't stay at home as easily as some of the more well-to-do folks are the ones getting it these days. So it's not the ideal situation for an equitable society. All right. I do have some other news before we get some more questions. And that is, I just heard, remember how the city of San Diego was going to sell the Qualcomm Stadium land to I'm sorry, the city of San Diego is going to sell the stadium land around Mission Valley to San Diego State University. Remember that deal? Well, it's happening. I just heard that last night, San Diego State University transmitted over its final draft purchase and sale agreement. The city is anxious to get that approved by July so that they can A, get the money. They want the money now a lot more than they did. And B, so that they can wipe the obligation to keep taking care of San Diego's of the stadium and operate and maintain it for the years to come. So especially, this, whatever it costs, about 12 million, $14 million a year to operate and maintain that SDCCU stadium. They want those off the books for the 21 budget series. So that's a major bit of news. The city, if they want to get that approved by July, they're going to need to be moving really fast to get that approved and get that checked through the city attorney's office. It sounds like they would want that on the May 19th city council docket. So that's a big deal. I think, are you talking about here the stadium? Well, that's a good question. So CSU, they approved the purchase price, about $88 million. San Diego State University is paying to the city of San Diego to take over this land. Plus, they're going to have to come up with about $300 million to build a stadium. They say they can do that. They can sort of borrow the money and then pay it off. They can borrow the money and pay it off over the next several decades while they develop the land and make money off the land. So they plan to partner with private developers to build homes and other things on that land, and then hotels even. And then money they get from that will help pay off the money it's going to cost. So the first thing they have to do is grade all that land. So right now it's in a floodplain. They have to lift it up and flatten it out so they can build a stadium, build these other things. That's going to cost a lot of money. The $88 million is paid immediately. So it's not like a mortgage payment. Okay, so let's take some more questions. It would be great to see Voice San Diego updates like this on a regular. How about this? Let me tell you about a couple of things. We're doing this every Monday at 1:30 p.m., every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. Last night at 5:30 p.m., we did a version of this with all of our members. We have about 3,000 people who donate to Voice of San Diego. About 3,500 now people who donate to Voice San Diego. And our membership, out of that, were invited to come on to a Zoom call, webinar sort of thing we put on last night. We had about 100 people come. It was great. A lot of fun, a lot of big questions. So if you want to be part of those discussions, go to voiceofsandiego.org. Here, look at this. Go here, VOSD.org/give, and you can be part of that system. And we're going to be doing that a lot more. Events were a big part of my life. I love events. I thrive at events. And so to have them ripped from my soul for this period has been really hard. We're rebuilding that with this system and with the thing we did last night. So please consider coming there if you have anything. I understand a lot of people are struggling these days. So we don't expect that. We're hoping to set up alternative ways that people can be part of that system without actually donating money. But if you do have some extra funds, that's how we pay our investigative journalism journalists right now. They go out, try to, again, A, find out what people are, what makes sense of what people are saying, and B, find out what they don't want to say. So that's what that's all about. Is that $88 million paid in July overtime? That's going to be paid right away. There's a lot of talk about opening schools without discussing the fact that teachers unions have the right to negotiate all of it. Also, will schools with AC be allowed to use them if they open in July because of the risk of spreading the virus? Well, I have no answers to any of those questions. No idea. I'm very interested in that as well. I think that if you've been watching these updates, you know how passionate I am about this point. Like, we can't have an open economy without opening schools. I know a lot of people are concerned about their spas and their gyms and their, getting their roots done or whatever. I love all those things too. I want to go to spas. I want to go to gyms. But the most important thing in my mind for reopening the economy is getting people back to school. we can't even maintain this level of productivity where we have to watch and take care of our kids' education every day as well. So, how is that going to be solved, and why isn't that the main topic of consideration? So, yes, teachers unions have a major role in negotiating these things, and I think right now there's kind of two big camps being set up in this discussion. On the one side are people who want there to be a more robust distance learning process right now that's a lot more inclusive, that's less unequal, that you have some private schools, charter schools, and just nice schools that are engaging students almost all day long, every day. And you have some poor schools, traditional schools, or other places that are barely getting people connected. And so there's a big camp saying like, we got to resolve that right now. We're going to be in this for a while. Let's mount a robust distance learning thing. And then there's another camp that says, nah, this time is lost. Let's do our best so that we can keep people engaged and enriched over this period. But let's start school earlier. Let's give teachers a break because they have kids too. Let's start school earlier or do summer school and otherwise engage people in a different way. That this time is pretty much something we just have to sacrifice. I think those two camps are going to come to loggerheads at some point. There's loggerheads is a great journalism word, and they're going to have to resolve those two really different points of view. And I think yesterday Gavin Newsom got all of our attention when he said that he sees people going back to school in July, maybe August, maybe having staggered schedules, which I don't understand. I mean, you can't have teachers working twice as much. If you're going to talk about teachers unions, that's going to be a problem. You can't have. So I don't know how that works. Anything that keeps us at home, though, helping our kids get through this, is going to be further crippling to the economy. You have got to provide people a place where their kids can go and be enriched and educated every day, so that people can go to work. And so I hope that they don't come up with some plans that are like school, but without school, you just keep working real hard at home, because that's not going to help anybody. And the bear will still be sitting on the economy, and we can't breathe at that point. So, yeah, I think that they could use AC. I think that they could do a lot of things. They just have to decide what level of threat are we comfortable with. I mean, I think the hard part with schools, right, is like, the moment they go back to schools, they're going to get sick. They always get sick. Every year they go back to school, they get sick. We all get sick. It's just what happens at school. So are we going to be okay with a new version of that? Are we going to be okay? And I think there's a lot of people who say, no, they should wear face masks. They should be 6 feet apart. Well, what's school if that's the case? How does that even work? You have 24 kids in a normal elementary school classroom. There's no room for 6 feet apart from them. That's not school. That's not going to work. So I don't know how they're going to get through this, but I do know that it should be the central question. If anybody's saying reopen the economy, well, that should be the main thing that they're trying to answer right now. It shouldn't be spas, restaurants, or car washes. It should be, what is going to happen with special education? What's going to happen with some of these kids going back to school? So I appreciate your question. I wish I had better answers, but I'm not in charge right now. We're going to be pushing them to get those answers, though. All right. Any other questions people want answered? We do have a lot of things happening. The budget, the San Diego City budget, is being discussed. There's going to be a lot of hearings over the next couple of weeks about what people want to see. I mean, it's basically which cuts are going to be the worst. Which ones should we fight for? Which ones should we embrace? And which ones are needed? The city of San Diego had $248 million deposited from the federal government into its accounts recently. $248 million is a lot of money. It's almost as much as the $300 million deficit they're facing. But along with it came a letter from the federal government saying you can't use it for this, or this. You basically can't use it for your deficit. So what can they argue? Can they argue that some of the money was because of this convention center and the 1,000 people they've put into the convention center, or can they use it for other issues? All right, let's move to the last thing. I presented this last night to our members. Is there a budget hearing tomorrow? I thought there was Thursday. I'm almost certain there is, but I'll check on that. Is there a budget hearing tomorrow? All right. Let's go to this. silver linings. Let's turn this off. If you ever want to see that, you can let me know. This is a link I'm happy to share anytime. All right, silver linings. I don't like this term. Obviously, this was a horrible situation for so many people, but I think it's there are some things changing that I'm pretty proud of and interested in watching better. I think we are figuring out ways to connect better and more efficiently. If you wanted to weigh in the city's budget before, there was very few options to really do that from the comfort of your home. And I think that if you want to participate in your community planning board, for example, you shouldn't have to take hours out of your evening where your kids don't have a childcare or other issues like that. And and so it means that the only people who go participate in some of these discussions are often the most passionate. So they might be passionately against a project or passionately for a project or actually invested in a project. And thus, the only people who show up are these polarized individuals when there's the vast majority who are silent because they lack very easy ways to connect to some of these discussions. So I think that's a major silver lining. We learned recently that you can get permits and by just turning in your architectural blueprints online. Like that seems like something we should have been able to do 10 years ago. And so the city of San Diego and other places are making it easier to do some very basic things online that are it's going to save miles of travel, trees for printing. It's going to save a lot of things. And so that's absolutely a silver lining. Telehealth. We had the capability for doctors to protect themselves and to protect their patients who don't want to go wait in a waiting room for hours, and actually get some of these consultations done. So would you rather work with a doctor who's encased in protective equipment? Looks like they're probing ET, or would you rather have them behind a screen where they can talk to you like a normal person? I think a lot of these decisions might be a lot easier, and we'd be able to have a lot more of a relationship with some of our care providers if we use some of these technologies. And it seems like that got a significant boost, at least in San Diego, from what's happened. That's an actual silver lining. In the commuting revolution, I do think there is something happening with commuting. If you can do your work from home, I think a lot of people are realizing that they might have been able to in a way that they didn't think they could. And that should be able to free up our traffic, reduce our air pollution, and have significant impacts in so many different ways. So I think that this is a tremendous opportunity to save where we don't need to travel or park, and we can use parking lots for better uses, and we can save some of the environment and traffic issues. Homeless. So, right or wrong, one of the first things that a lot of local leaders thought of when this thing erupted was the homeless population, both making sure they didn't become victims of what was happening, but also to make sure that they didn't transmit it to broader populations. And so they really mobilized. There are now 1,100 people in the convention center sheltering there, which you just have to step back and remember it's just a remarkable thing. And so what happens to those people? Are we really going to change the dynamics with homelessness right now in a way that's lasting? And so I think that there are a lot of things happening. There's a lot of talk at the city, for example, about purchasing rundown hotels right now. It costs a lot of money to build housing units. Maybe we can convert some of those into permanent housing, cheap housing for some of these people who are right on the edge of homelessness. There's all kinds of interesting opportunities going forward. Here's a question: will unions not want more online tools in order to save city jobs? I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussions about that, but they also want to stay healthy. And if they don't have to touch things that other people are bringing to them, they might be considerate of that. They seem to be very cooperative about that discussion in a way that I'm proud of. Are there enough homeless beds for all at this time? That's a really interesting question. We've been trying to get an answer to that. There's a lot of a lot of beds in these giant tent shelters that were open, but those were considered too dense and too packed for this current crisis with the virus, and so they were emptied out. So there were a lot of beds, but by far not enough to safely space them out. And now that's even worse. So a lot of the shelters we don't know if they'll ever be able to be packed the way that they were before. And so that's something to watch. All right. And last, This is just a point I made last night with some of our members. I think we really are reckoning with what matters now. I remember a lot of the debates we were having in local politics were just stupid. A lot of the discussions we're having, even in my family, were just more perfunctory than we needed to. We can focus on what matters, which is making sure everybody's healthy, making sure we get the best education we can, and making sure we have places to stay and be. And so. I think that's a silver lining. These are all real silver linings. They're not just like, oh, I got to watch the Wire again, all the way through or whatever. I think these are real, significant things that are going to change our lives forever. So, again, happy to take any of your questions. Here's one: is there a sense of when the Bay will open back up to boaters? Assuming it's a phased process, who and what might be in those phases? That's a really interesting question. So, if you remember, the mayors released this plan for how to open up their beaches. All the mayors wanted to be united. They didn't want like Coronado to open and then everybody go to Coronado. They wanted everybody to do it at the same time. And in that first phase recommendation, they included boating. They said we should allow boating, but the county was the decider. So if we go back to um, our decision tree here. Um, so these folks, um, are the ones deciding right here. Dr. Wilma Wooten is the public health officer, so she is the one who gets to make these decisions, and she has tremendous power in moments like this. She is the one, for example. So Mayor Kevin Faulkner closed the beaches in the city of San Diego right after that sort of stay-at-home order came out. Remember that first weekend they just filled the beaches with people, and so he said, "Can't have beaches open at all. Close them." And then that after that, Wilma Wooten did that for the entire county. And so what happened is last week she decided that it's okay, as the mayors had recommended, to allow people to surf, kayak, stand up paddleboard, and in the ocean, but not to boat. So the mayors had recommended boating, and she decided not to allow boating. Their rationale was that they could not effectively enforce social distancing on people's private boats. You've seen them all in some of these places, a big boat filled with kids that are partying or whatever. Like, they just didn't know how they would enforce that. So that was their decision making on that. I do not know when they'll change their mind on that. I think it would probably be soon. It seems like things are easing quite rapidly. We just got news today that the Bay Area, a lot of counties in the Bay Area, are going to begin allowing some easement. But again, we haven't seen a real flattening of the number of cases here. There's been a flattening of the hospitalizations, but not of the number of cases, which seem to actually be surging in South Bay. So I cannot say why they left boating off, or when exactly they would switch that. Any idea why we can swim in the ocean but not the bays? No, I found that peculiar as well. I can look into that and ask. I wondered that as well. You can swim in the ocean but not the bay. I don't know why that. Have the cities with state beaches started engaging with the state on when state beaches will open? Yes, I know that they have, but I don't have any updates on that. Sorry. I don't know what it's going to take for that to change. So you do have a weird situation where you have like Encinitas, where the city beaches are open, Moonlight Beach is open or whatever, but San Elijo State Beach, Carlsbad State Beach, those are still closed. That's the state decision. So when you go back to our decision tree, that's Gavin Newsom that has to be dealt with there. Bill Ponder checks in. A lot of HMOs are getting away with not doing enough. I understand you've been quite concerned about Kaiser. We'll follow up with your concerns on that about testing and healthcare, especially people of color. They seem to be having a lot disproportionate impact from this. So we'll keep following that. Okay. Any other last questions? Really appreciate you guys participating in this. And I certainly enjoyed this. Let me know if you have any other questions we can pass along to our staff to make sure that they follow up on some of these issues, and to otherwise make sure you can follow it. Let me just give you a tour today of our site, and some things you might be interested in. So. I was just reading that story about the nursing homes. You can check that out. This is our contributor, Jared Whitlock. Used to be at the Business Journal. Fantastic reporter. And so you can check out his story. Just go to voiceofsandiego.org. We also have Kayla Jimenez today. She's been investigating for years now sexual misconduct at schools. And she did a great story about how all this online interaction has obviously brought up a lot of questions about the boundaries between teachers and students, and whether those how we protect those from being abused by predators. There was an op-ed today about the teacher pay issue. We've been having a back and forth. There was some concern from some conservatives that we're facing massive deficits right now, and teachers should not have gotten across the board pay increases over the last few years, and that has now proven to be a burden, and we have a response now to that. And this is that graph or that tracker I was talking about. It's our daily capacity. And so what if we need to get up to 5,000 tests per day? Check this out. You can always be following that every day. So this is our site. That's our main product. Stay tuned also for Friday. Our podcast comes out. That's our weekly podcast. And then on Friday as well at 1:30, we'll have an Instagram, Voice of San Diego at Home, where one of our reporters will talk about some of their work for that day. So that's on Instagram at 1:30. Again, these Voice of San Diego at Home shows are Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 1:30 p.m. And you can always follow everything we do at voicefsandiego.org/newsletters, vost.org/newsletters. All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining today. And follow up with me anytime you want on any other comments that you didn't want to put here at scott@voicefsandiego.org. That's scott@voicefsandiego.org. Have a good Wednesday, and we will talk to you soon.